Ukraine, a land of rich history, diverse culture, and resilient people. It's a country many people probably couldn't have placed on a map before 2022. Nestled in Eastern Europe, it often went unnoticed by the global community. And that's fine. Not everyone is a geography whiz. But Ukraine's story is one that deserves to be told and remembered. But trust me, Ukraine was a place worth knowing. Its landscapes were as varied as its history, from the Carpathian Mountains to the Black Sea coastline. Imagine vibrant cities like Kiev, where history whispered from every corner and modern life bustled along. Kiev, the heart of Ukraine, was a city that never slept, where ancient cathedrals stood alongside modern skyscrapers. Picture vast fields of sunflowers, their golden heads nodding in the breeze. These fields were not just beautiful, they were a symbol of Ukraine's agricultural prowess and the hard work of its people. Think of warm summer nights filled with music and laughter. Festivals brought communities together, celebrating their rich traditions and vibrant culture. That was Ukraine before the war, a country brimming with life, culture, and hope. It was a place where the past and present coexisted harmoniously, and the future seemed bright. A place where people went about their daily lives, dreaming of a brighter future. Markets buzzed with activity, children played in the streets, and families gathered in parks. The thing is, Ukraine has always been a bit of a crossroads. Its strategic location made it a focal point for trade, culture, and unfortunately, conflict. It's geographically positioned right between Russia and Europe. This unique position has shaped its history, making it a bridge between East and West. That's led to a complex history, with periods of conflict and periods of peace. Ukraine has seen empires rise and fall, and through it all, it has maintained its unique identity. But through it all, the Ukrainian people have persevered, holding on to their identity and their dreams. Their festivals, traditions, and way of life have been a testament to their resilience. They deserved better than what came next. The storm that was about to break would test their strength and spirit like never before. But even in the face of adversity, the heart of Ukraine continued to beat strong, a beacon of hope and resilience. As the world watched, Ukraine stood firm, its people united in their resolve. They faced the challenges head-on, with courage and determination, and the world responded. Nations rallied in support, showing solidarity with Ukraine. Global landmarks lit up in blue and yellow, a testament to the universal desire for peace and justice. In the midst of turmoil, Ukrainian families stayed strong. Children drew pictures of peace, communities came together to support one another, and the spirit of Ukraine shone brighter than ever. The road ahead was uncertain, but the determination to rebuild and restore was unwavering. Ukraine's story was far from over. It was a story of hope, resilience, and an unbreakable spirit. As the sun set over the Ukrainian landscape, it symbolized not an end, but a new beginning. A promise that no matter the storm, Ukraine would rise again, stronger and more united than ever before. Then, everything changed. The tranquility that once defined the streets of Ukraine was abruptly shattered. In February 2022, Russian forces invaded Ukraine. The invasion was swift and unrelenting, catching the world off guard. The world watched in horror as a peaceful nation was thrust into chaos and violence. News channels broadcasted the grim reality, and social media was flooded with images and videos that painted a picture of despair. The images were stark and heartbreaking. Streets that once bustled with activity were now scenes of devastation. The emotional toll was evident on the faces of those who witnessed the destruction firsthand. Cities once filled with life were reduced to rubble. Iconic landmarks and everyday buildings alike were turned into piles of debris, a testament to the ferocity of the conflict. Families were torn apart, forced to flee their homes or seek shelter underground. The exodus of refugees became a common sight as people carried whatever they could salvage, leaving behind their lives and memories. The vibrant colors of Ukraine were replaced by the grays and blacks of war. The once picturesque landscapes were now marred by burnt-out buildings and vehicles, a grim reminder of the ongoing conflict. The laughter was silenced by the sounds of explosions and gunfire. The echoes of joy and normalcy were replaced by the relentless noise of warfare, creating an atmosphere of constant fear and uncertainty. The hopes and dreams of millions were shattered. Families mourned the loss of loved ones, and communities struggled to come to terms with the new reality imposed upon them. This wasn't some far-off conflict. It was happening in the heart of Europe, affecting not just Ukraine but the entire continent. The proximity of the war brought a sense of urgency and concern to neighboring countries. This was a brutal attack on a sovereign nation and its people, right on the doorstep of Europe. The international community rallied in support, with protests and demonstrations showing solidarity with Ukraine. It was a wake-up call to the world. Global leaders convened to discuss the implications of the invasion, and the international news coverage kept the spotlight on Ukraine, ensuring that the plight of its people was not forgotten. Humanitarian efforts were mobilized on an unprecedented scale. Aid organizations and volunteers worked tirelessly to provide relief to those affected, offering food, shelter, and medical assistance to the displaced and injured. Amidst the chaos, there were glimmers of hope. Communities came together to rebuild, and makeshift classrooms were set up to ensure that children could continue their education despite the turmoil. The resilience of the Ukrainian people shone through. Soldiers bravely defended their land, and ordinary citizens showed remarkable strength and determination in the face of adversity. The international support for Ukraine was unwavering. Flags of various countries flew in solidarity, and the global community continued to stand with Ukraine, advocating for peace and justice. Efforts for peace and resolution were ongoing. Diplomatic channels were pursued, and peace talks were held in the hope of finding a way to end the conflict and restore stability to the region. As the war raged on, the spirit of recovery and hope persisted. Rebuilding efforts began, and signs of recovery emerged, symbolizing the unyielding spirit of the Ukrainian people and their determination to reclaim their future. So how did we get here? Well, the story is long and complicated. The roots of the tension between Russia and Ukraine stretch back over a century, marked by periods of conflict, uneasy alliances, and shifting borders. But, to put it simply, the relationship between Russia and Ukraine has been tense for a long time. This tension has been fueled by historical grievances, cultural differences, and political ambitions. You see, Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union, which collapsed in 1991. During the Soviet era, Ukraine was one of the most important republics, both economically and strategically. When that happened, Ukraine became an independent country again. The newfound independence was celebrated with great enthusiasm, as Ukrainians looked forward to a future free from Soviet control. But Russia never really seemed to accept that. The Kremlin viewed Ukraine's independence as a significant loss, both in terms of territory and influence. They saw Ukraine as part of their sphere of influence, a key piece in their geopolitical ambitions. This perspective has led to numerous conflicts and confrontations over the years. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, a Ukrainian peninsula with a majority Russian population. This move was justified by Russia as a response to the will of the Crimean people, but it was widely condemned by the international community. It was a clear violation of international law and a sign of things to come. The annexation of Crimea marked a significant escalation in the conflict, leading to ongoing violence and instability in the region. Since then, the situation has only worsened. The conflict in eastern Ukraine has resulted in thousands of deaths and displaced millions of people. The region remains a flashpoint, with frequent clashes between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed separatists. The international community has responded with sanctions and diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict, but a lasting solution remains elusive. The tension between Russia and Ukraine continues to shape the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe. Despite the challenges, Ukraine has shown remarkable resilience. The country continues to strive for a future where it can determine its own path, free from external interference. The story of Ukraine and Russia is far from over. It is a tale of struggle, resilience, and the enduring quest for sovereignty. As we look to the future, the hope is for a peaceful resolution that respects the rights and aspirations of all involved. Section 4. The human cost lives torn apart. War is never pretty. It's brutal, chaotic, and leaves a trail of devastation in its wake. But behind the statistics and the headlines, it's important to remember the human cost of this conflict. Thousands of innocent civilians have been killed. Millions have been forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees in neighboring countries. Families have been separated, homes destroyed, and lives shattered. And for what? Because one man decided he wanted to redraw the map of Europe. It's a tragedy on a massive scale, and the scars will take generations to heal. Section 5. A world on edge, global consequences. This war isn't just a regional conflict, it's a global crisis with far-reaching consequences. Remember those sunflowers I mentioned earlier? Well, Ukraine is a major exporter of grain. The war has disrupted global food supplies, leading to price hikes and shortages, particularly in countries that rely heavily on Ukrainian imports. Then there's the energy crisis. Russia is a major supplier of natural gas to Europe. The war has sent energy prices soaring, putting a strain on economies and forcing countries to rethink their energy dependence on Russia. This war has highlighted just how interconnected our world is. Section 6. The West responds, a unified front. In the face of Russian aggression, Western nations have largely presented a united front. They've imposed sanctions on Russia, provided military aid to Ukraine, and condemned the invasion in international forums. But the question remains, is it enough? Some argue that more needs to be done, that stronger measures are needed to stop Putin's aggression. Others worry about escalating the conflict and the risk of a wider war. It's a delicate balancing act, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Section 7. A fragile hope, the path to peace. The situation in Ukraine remains dire, but even in the darkest of times there is always hope. Hope that a diplomatic solution can be found. Hope that the fighting will cease and the people of Ukraine can begin to rebuild their lives. Hope that the world will learn from this tragedy and work together to prevent such horrors from happening again.